When city engineers break ground, they expect resistance. Clay, rock, water tables, forgotten basements. What they don't expect is architecture, and they certainly don't expect to close the most refined structure first. In 1903, during routine civic expansion beneath downtown Cleveland, excavation teams documented multiple underground chambers that did not match recorded settlement phases. The project itself was ordinary. Infrastructure, foundations, urban preparation. What was not ordinary was the sequence of closure, because the deepest chamber, the one described in surviving notes as the most structurally refined, was sealed before the others. Not last. First. That detail appears minor, until you examine the pattern. In Cleveland's case, when excavation reports initially describe multiple strata, recognizable commercial basements, expected glacial drift, then stonework that did not resemble walls aligned across depth layers, vaulted ceilings, blocks carved with unusual precision. Survey images show arches maintaining perfect curvature even after decades underground, yet when backfilling began, the ornate lower sections were resealed promptly. Upper, less refined voids remained accessible longer for documentation. If closure were purely about safety, the unstable cavities should have been prioritized. Instead, refinement was prioritized. Why? This is not unique to Cleveland. In Boston's early subway excavations, certain lower vaulted corridors encountered beneath expected colonial layers were rerouted around rather than explored. In Chicago, sewer expansion teams redirected pipelines after encountering unusually thick substructures. In St. Louis, bridge reinforcement halted when stone platforms extended beyond mapped grids. In each case, deeper complexity triggered hesitation, and in several cases, resealing. The official explanations were consistent: budget constraints, safety concerns, construction timelines, all reasonable. But if timelines were paramount, why spend additional labor to carefully backfill intact chambers? Backfilling requires time. Backfilling requires planning. Backfilling requires intent. Collapse is passive. Resealing is active. Another contradiction emerges in documentation style. My early excavation entries are procedural: measurements, material classification, load-bearing notes. But once deeper chambers appear, the tone shifts. Yeni metin belgesi. Language becomes guarded. Descriptions shorten, images narrow. Wide-angle photography of lower chambers becomes rare. In archival analysis, tone change often signals uncertainty or instruction. If deeper architecture were mundane, why condense its description? Why replace detailed stone ratios with phrases like earlier construction, yeni metin belgesi? The chamber sealed first in Cleveland reportedly exhibited the tightest stone joins and most refined ornamentation, yeni metin belgesi. Columns with classical proportions, capitals with carved motifs, vaulted ceilings formed with geometric accuracy inconsistent with frontier methods. If primitive remnants, why classical proportion? If imported debris, why integrated load-bearing placement? If natural formation, why symmetry? Those questions appear in private correspondence between engineers. They do not appear in public summary. This mirrors another pattern documented in anonymous monument construction, too. In that case, cities erected statues honoring unnamed professionals, architects, engineers, scholars, while erasing their identities. Here, cities encounter refined architecture, then erase its visibility. In both scenarios, preservation without explanation, acknowledgement without attribution, exposure followed by containment. The timing is also similar. She's late 19th century, rapid industrial growth, urban modernization, infrastructure digging deeper than previous generations dared. When cities dig shallow, anomalies remain hidden. When they dig deep, anomalies surface. And when anomalies surface, documentation compresses. Another contradiction involves structural capacity. The deepest chambers reportedly supported loads far exceeding surface construction, yeni metin belgesi, platforms thick enough for multi-story weight, vault curvature engineered for longevity. If these were remnants of modest warehouses, why engineer for excess? If excess, what stood above originally? And if something stood above, where is record of its removal? Resealing the deepest chamber prevents that question from being physically pursued. In St. Louis, archival minutes mention obstruction removal per directive, with no elaboration, language strikingly similar to monument removals documented decades later, yeni metin belgesi, 2. Directive without explanation, action without context, silence without denial. Water erosion marks present another alignment. Cleveland's lower surfaces displayed polish consistent with prolonged saturation, yet no documented flood event corresponds to that depth. If water once filled those chambers, ground level must have differed dramatically. If ground level differed, official timelines compress. And if official timelines compress, foundational narratives shift. Resealing halts further measurement. Without measurement, speculation replaces certainty. Speculation without evidence can be dismissed. Evidence sealed cannot be examined. There is also the matter of sequence. Multiple chambers existed. Not all were sealed immediately. Only the most refined, only the deepest. Only the ones challenging accepted chronology. Why not leave them accessible for academic study? Why not preserve them as historical curiosity? Cities preserved Roman ruins in Europe. Why not preserve anomalous American stonework? Unless preservation threatened coherence. Coherence of what? Chronology, settlement sequence, technological progression. The deeper chamber in Cleveland was described as inexplicable in surviving fragments, not geological, not colonial, not classifiable. In archival practice, unclassifiable findings often generate supplementary reports. Here, they generated soil over stone, closure over inquiry. Compare this with the statue pattern yeni metin belgesi, 2. Cities erected expensive monuments to unnamed professionals across continents. Then many were removed, or repurposed, or stripped of specific elements. Specificity seems to be the threat. In monuments, specificity of identity disappears. In chambers, specificity of origin disappears. What remains is abstraction. Abstraction is safe. It does not contradict. It does not anchor to inconvenient dates. It does not require rewriting textbooks. Another contradiction lies in economic logic. Excavation is costly. Resealing refined stonework wastes potential reusable material. Yet refined stone was buried rather than salvaged yeni metin belgesi. Why bury usable carved limestone? Unless removal would expose more than intended. In engineering culture of the late 19th century, pride in discovery was common. Engineers published extensively. Unusual finds became case studies. Yet comprehensive engineering papers on Cleveland's deepest chambers are absent. Silence again. The question becomes unavoidable. What was too advanced to leave open? Advanced in what sense? Stone precision, geometric planning, structural foresight, or implication? If the deepest chamber exhibited architectural vocabulary inconsistent with accepted settlement phases, yeni metin belgesi, leaving it open would invite comparison. Comparison invites pattern recognition. Pattern recognition destabilizes isolation. If Cleveland were unique, anomaly could be dismissed. But Chicago, Boston, St. Louis, San Francisco, each reports deeper anomalies during similar modernization windows. Each resolves them locally. None compare nationally. National comparison might reveal shared geometry. Shared geometry suggests shared origin. Shared origin challenges independence. Independence of city-founding narratives remains central to American historiography. What happens if multiple cities rest upon pre-existing aligned foundations? The answer is not provided. Instead, chambers are sealed, images dispersed, reports condensed. Like the unnamed statues Yeni Metin Belgesi, too, the refined chambers become symbolic, reduced to earlier construction. Symbolic remnants do not threaten chronology. Specific remnants might. There is one more contradiction. If safety were the concern, unstable sections would be sealed first. But reports indicate ornate chambers were resealed promptly, while other cavities remained accessible longer. Yeni Metin Belgesi. Refinement appears correlated with urgency, not instability. Urgency. Why urgent? Because time allows witnesses. Witnesses compare notes. Notes spread. Spread creates pattern. Pattern demands explanation. Explanation requires revision. Revision is costly. Sealing is cheaper. But stone remembers. Photographs survive. Fragments remain in archives, enough to raise the question, not enough to answer it. When engineers stopped digging in 1903, they did not declare completion. They halted Yeni Metin Belgesi. Halting suggests interruption. Interruption suggests decision. Decision suggests choice. Choice implies something was evaluated and deemed unsuitable for continuation. Not unsafe. He's unsuitable. For what? For open air. For public record. For sustained scrutiny. If the deepest chamber had remained open, fully documented, measured, compared, what might it have revealed? Shared design with other cities? Advanced engineering preceding accepted timelines? A structural network predating official founding? Or something less dramatic but equally destabilizing? A proof that American urban foundations were not as linear as textbooks suggest. We do not know. Because the chamber was sealed. The deepest first. The most refined first. The most advanced first. And that order is the detail that refuses to disappear. What was too advanced to leave open? The stone itself offers no explanation. The archives offer compression. The pattern offers unease. And beneath layers of fill and asphalt, the chamber remains. Not destroyed, not studied, not integrated into history, simply closed, until someone decides to open it again, if they ever do.